Libero Grande is a very unique and very different style of soccer game that originally saw life in the arcades in 1997, that was created by Namco and was later ported to the PlayStation in 1998. And the elements used in this game were taken directly from a previous title in Namco's library way back during the days of the Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES console, where you could just play as one player on a team. So instead of controlling all of the players on the pitch, or the player that was closest to the ball, wherever the ball was positioned on the pitch, you only had access and the ability to control one player on the team in the game, and it was up to you to control that player, to interact with, get involved with the whole dynamic of what was happening on the field, but also to initiate various commands and give orders to other players to get them in position and to get them to pass the ball to you and so forth, and you would do the same for them. For its time, it was definitely a very unique concept, and it was something that really stood out because nothing had been seen like it before on consoles and in games in general. So you had the ability to choose one of the star or main players of a particular national team. Now all of the teams would have various characteristics, traits and stats that were very reflective of top players during that point in the seasons at that period of time, although the game wouldn't have access to the official licenses of the names because they couldn't afford or couldn't acquire the licenses. Mainly those licenses were always usually in the hands of the likes of the FIFA games. So likes of the ISS series by Konami would also utilise different ideas and change names that were looked and felt similar to those iconic names, and Libero Grande done the same thing. So you'd kind of get an idea of the types of players that were in the game and who you wanted to play as. So in addition to the original arcade mode, with the console version you had access to additional features and modes with an additional kind of like World Cup format so that you can play in a competition with up to 8 players, and you also have the ability to get involved with different training modes where you could complete various training ground tasks and upgrade your skill level so that you could increase your attributes and your overall stats with each player that you decided to pick, that you would use to move forward in the various championships in the game itself. So as you were playing, you had to run around the pitch, but also you had to make sure that you were always in a different position, and you would be given the ability to initiate orders with your teammates to get them to move around into different positions. But if they had the ball and they were close to you, that you could get them to pass the ball to you so that you could either pass the ball to somebody else or to go ahead and try and score goals yourself. Even though the concept of the game feels like it has a very simulation kind of focused aesthetic, which it does to some degree, but it plays more like an arcade game as originally it was in the arcade. So it has a mixed element in terms of how it plays. The controls in the game, even though from the player perspective, in a lot of ways it can take a bit of getting used to, especially on the console versions, as it can seem a little bit on the clunky side, but what it does do extremely well. And the game did get decent reviews across the board in magazines stating that they loved the quirkiness of it and they enjoyed the unusual aesthetic that the game presented, as it was different from anything that had been seen at that point. Originally a demo of the game was also included with the release of Ridge Racer 4 with the Ridge Racer high spec demo, and on that demo disc was also a playable demo of Libero Grande as well, so it gave people more opportunities to try the game out. The game would go on to receive somewhat of a cult following because again it was very dynamic and it was very different from what was currently out there at the time. There would be a sequel that would be released later with Libero Grande 2. It would also be released on the PlayStation in Europe and Japan, but even though it improved drastically over all of the elements seen in the original title, but it wouldn't receive the same level of success of that of the first game. It's just a very, very different type of soccer game in all respects of the word. The fact is that you can only control one player, but I will admit from my own experience having played the game, because I used to own it back in the day myself, I remember picking it up and I enjoyed it. It was very, very different. Now mind you, and from a beginner standpoint, if you are an absolute beginner coming into playing this for the first time, believe me, you are going to be completely overwhelmed by what's going on, because it tries to replicate how you would feel if you were actually playing on a football pitch all on your own. Even though you've a load of team players around you, technically that's what it's trying to reflect, that you are on your own, even though you're playing alongside other players, that you're responsible for your own influences on the game. So that's what this game tries to replicate, and it does do do it quite well. But you need to have your wits about you, and you need to be aware of your surroundings as to what's going on at any one time, and you need to make sure that you're in the right position at the right time. So you have to have various elements where you have to help not only attack, but you can also help with creating chances both in midfield and even help defending if you have to as well. But if you're an absolute beginner, there's a very good chance you'll be just running around like a headless chicken. You will be all over the place with this game. It will definitely take a bit of time to understand the whole dynamic of what's being presented in the game. In some cases, for many players, it probably might put them off, and I'm sure back in the day it probably did. And I know myself, when I first played it, I was all over the place, and even going back to playing it now, and I haven't played it in a couple of years leading up to recording this video, and I hadn't played it in quite a while as well, and it took me about 10 or 15 minutes before I could really get a handle on what was going on, just trying to figure out the button combinations and trying to know where to be to make sure that I was in the correct position. There's a lot of responsibility on the player in general with this game, because you are responsible for your own actions and what goes on the pitch, because you have to be aware of everything, and you have to have the ability to also be present so that your players and your teammates can help you out, which presently is like just like playing football for real if you're playing as part of a team, because the play dynamic is very different. Because when you're playing games like FIFA and ISIS Pro, yes, you can control individual players but at different points, but usually whoever has the ball or whoever's nearest to the ball is the one you control first. And again, they all have their own abilities. There's some people that have better skills, or they've more speed, stamina, or even strength, so you can kind of run around with different players as and when you need to, or whoever has the ball. But in Libero Grande's case, you don't get that privilege. You pick one player and that's your player throughout the entirety of the match, so it is up to you how you focus your time and effort and energy on what it is that you're going to do. So it is a very unique dynamic that definitely holds itself well, and it's something that really stands out. And in all respects to the idea, games like of ISIS Pro, or even the Pro Evolution Soccer series, and even the FIFA series would later go on to use similar elements seen in Libero Grande, with some of their additional modes that they would add into their newer games that would be seen later on in the likes of the PS3, PS4 and PS5, with various legend modes that can be seen in the Pro Evolution Soccer series and the equivalent in the FIFA series with the Become a Pro modes. So they would focus their elements on one particular player, and you'd have to build up their attributes so that they could become a superstar. So it's interesting to see where they got these elements from, and a lot of it came from the ideas seen in Libero Grande. While it's not considered to be the best soccer game on the PlayStation, it does have some very unique attributes that really stands out, and in some ways was ahead of its time in all regards and respects to it, and it did help to pave the way for what was to come. Like I often say, like many of these soccer games that we do play, especially on the early days of the PlayStation 1, although while a lot of them may have been not considered as good or as comparable to the likes of FIFA or ISS Pro, they did in their own right help to set a structure and help to set a foundation for many of the future games that we now play today. And had games like Libero Grande not existed, we wouldn't have access to all of the additional modes and features that we would see in games at this current time. So it is a testament to those ideas from back in the days, and they are worthwhile playing in all respects. So I would love to know your thoughts of Libero Grande if you have played it yourself back in the day, and if so, what do you think of the game overall? Did you find it overwhelming and frustrating to figure out what to do, or were you able to get a grip as to what you were supposed to do in the game? I'd love to hear whatever stories you have of this iconic game, so be sure to share it down in the comments below. And if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to be updated of future videos. And if you would like to see more content around other types of unique and quirky style football games that were also released on the PlayStation, then you can check out the playlist here on the screen to see more of those games in action. And as always, keep those gaming memories alive.